You may proceed, Mr. Mkwani.
Yes. Mr. Tukwani, just before the lunch adjournment, we're still dealing with your visit to the Gupta compound. Can I refer you, please, to page 17 of Exhibit X with particular reference to paragraph 55. If you can please read the contents of that paragraph into the record and please explain them to us.
Paragraph 55.
Yes.
In an effort to try to persuade me to append my signature to the said letter, Tony intimated to me that both Magashule and Duduzane Zuma were recipients of monies in cash from a mining project from Jagersfontein mine. Neither Magashule nor Duduzane disputed Tony's claim. They both know that they are heads in agreement.
Yes. Did you know anything about the Jagersfontein mine project at the time?
I know there's been some challenges regarding to the community at Jagersfontein with regard to the mining dams that were mined illegally also.
And when Tony said this about Mr. Magashule and Mr. Zuma, none of them objected or said anything to the contrary to what you were saying?
Absolutely, they did not. They did not object.
You earlier on testified that Mr. Tony Gupta told you that every month there would be an amount of 3 million rand that would be distributed among himself, Mr. Duduzane Zuma, and Mr. Ace Magashule. And you said, if I understood you correctly, that Mr. Tony Gupta said he would drive to Mr. Magashule's place to give him his share of 1 million rand, and he would also go to Mr. Duduzane Zuma to give him his share of 1 million rand, and then he would keep 1 million rand for himself. Was that in relation to this mine, or was that separate from this mine?
It was in relation to the money that was, he said, was coming from this project.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Then turn over, please, to page 18, paragraph 56. You did testify on some of the issues in that paragraph, but I think that you might have missed other important aspects of what you wanted to convey to the chair. Could you please also read that paragraph carefully and also take us through it?
Paragraph 56 reads, further, Tony told me that Magashule would not benefit from the project because it belonged to me and him, that is Tony. Magashule did not dispute Tony. From this project, Tony told me that I will receive the monthly payment of 2 million rands. I was told by Tony that if I append my signature at the time, an instant payment of 2 million will be given to me. In this regard, a gentleman of Indian descent was called by Tony, and he whispered some words in the language unknown to me. The gentleman left the room and came back with a bag, a black pilot bag, the same bag frequently used by lawyers.
Yes, then what happened thereafter?
He then indicated to me, this is what I will get. Immediately I would go home with this amount of money if I signed.
Were you shown the money?
Yes, he opened the bag. At the top I could see it was, then he took out a stash and he said, this is 2 million. It was a 200 rands banknotes.
And at that time, where is Mr. Zuma and where is Mr. Magashule?
They are in the house. They are in the same room as I.
Yes.
The bag that you say is normally used by lawyers, can you give more a fuller description? Would it be one that lawyers, a briefcase that they pull sometimes?
Normally, lawyers and pilots, you see, that bag. That's why I say lawyers, because I've seen many lawyers pulling this one.
Yeah, but one that they can pull from behind.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I refuse to turn my back as an exhibit, Mr. Chair. I see that people are looking at me.
We note that you admit that you have one.
Perhaps, Chairperson, it could be shown. I think Ms. Molefe has it.
Oh, is that so? Maybe it could
So
be.
that Mr. Dugana
it
can
could be. He
confirm
could
whether-
confirm. Yeah. Will you just raise it if? Yeah, just up so that everybody can see it. Or is she saying you must raise yours? Mr. Tugwana, was that the type of bag
Yes,
you're
yes,
talking
yes,
about?
exactly, sir.
Okay, thank you.
For the record, Mr. Chair, that is Ms. Mulife's back.
Yes.
And did you sign after you've been persuaded by Mr. Tony showing you the money and indicating that you'll get this instant payment of 2 million? Did you sign the document ultimately?
No.
And then what happened thereafter?
I felt that a lot of information was now given to me, and at that time one needed to think fast, and I decided that the only way that one could actually get out of here and without any threat to one's life, I then said, there is also a better way this can be dealt with, and that if you can give me the document, and I'll take the document to the legal advisor, Mr. Fenter. And at the time I knew that Mr. Fenter will not entertain this. So I just said, because he's in the office of the Premier. So I said, if you give it to me, I'll take to the legal advisor, and then we can see how to deal with this matter. Then at that time I will then append my signature on the document. And then he gave it to me, and it was at the time that Mr. Mahashule then leaned over to him and whispered something that I did not hear. And immediately Tony then said, let me see, something that I need to correct. And as soon as I gave him the report, the letter, he took it and he said to me, well, I think my brother here is in the better position to deal with the matter of the letter. And then, but still, he then said to me, you can actually sign this thing, and it can be ratified. And I've spoken to my brother here. The Executive Council can ratify this. Then I said, I don't think that that's how it works. I can't do something that is wrong, and the executive ratifying it. And then I said, the only person who can sign this document, if you want to do this, it will be when you put it on the letterhead of the department and signed by the HOD. And should I continue?
Yes, but what I want to understand, I mean, whether or not the letter was going to be put in the name of the MEC or the HOD, at that point it was clear that there was no procurement that has taken place at all to appoint this service provider. Am I correct?
The project was at an initial stage. There was nothing. We were just looking at the design and everything, and so there was nothing to put on tender. And for them to be eager to get this project, I did not know what informed that.
Yes.
I'm sorry, at that stage you were just looking at some ideas about this project, and you had not even reached the stage, maybe, and you must tell me if that is so or not, of doing a feasibility study or anything like that?
We had not reached that stage,
Yes.
Chair.
Yes.
All that we were doing, we had an idea, and we were working on this idea. And we were putting ideas around how to approach this. And to have this project taken over by this company was not something that we had actually anticipated, because we thought that once we have dealt with this, you need to go through the processes that should be followed in terms of procuring some of aspects that will be needed to deal with the project moving forward.
Okay.
Yes, and who was the HOD at the time?
At the time, that is in 2012, the HOD was Mr. Ozzy Osman.
While Mr. Mkwena is looking at his papers, can I go back to the bag? Did you get a chance to see how much space was taken by the money in the bag, by the cash? Was it full? Was it about half? Or was it virtually empty except maybe a few stashes of cash?
No, it was full. And then when he picked it, it was also a struggle just to pull the stage of the note.
Okay.
Now, may I refer to paragraph 61 and take us through the contents of that paragraph?
Should I read it first?
It's fine, you can summarize it.
Okay. Chair, when it became clear that I was not willing to sign, Tony then suggested that you can fire your HOD, and then I have a replacement for you. And then I said to him, I'm not the person that is responsible for this. Makashule is, and it was so because I was getting irritated on this. If you check, Chair, if I can take you, the everything that had happened in the province. At the time when I was sitting in that meeting, I was working now with the 4th HOD. From the period of 2009 to 2012, I had 4 HODs in the department.
Why such a high turnover of DGs?
You see, the powers were still with the Premier. He did not delegate any of the power of those powers to any person. They were centralized to him. And throughout all these HODs, he was the person central in discussing with them. Without my knowledge, I will only be informed by the HOD that is leaving. For instance, when I got into the department, I found Mr. Hunyedi. He was an educationist coming from the background of education. And he then told me he was there up until the 13th of July, 2009. And then he told me that he was told to go and assist the newly appointed HOD of education, Stanley Malope. And if you allow, Chair, just to bring this point about this newly appointed HOD. When I was the acting MEC of education, there was pressure on me to appoint Mr. Stanley Malope as an HOD, and I refused to do that because my argument was at the time you had very capable people who were in senior positions in the Department of Education. And he was at the time coming from Peckhofs as a director in Peckhofs after having worked as a director at the regional office, at the district office of education. So there were many people who were quite, qualified and experienced, etc. So I refused to do that, and the pressure was put to bear on me by Makashule to do this. When I refused, I then, after the elections, the first appointment that was that of Mr. Stanley Malope as HOD of education.
So
And-
the very same person that you had
Yeah, that
not
I
wanted to-
refused to appoint, yes.
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 But are you saying that at the time that pressure was being put on you to appoint him, Mr. Malope, he was at the level of director,
Yes, yes, Chair.
and you were being asked to appoint him as Director General of the department?
Yes, Chair.
And therefore, if you had appointed him, he would have skipped the position of Chief Director, the position of Deputy Director General, and gone up to the level of Director General straight away.
Yes, yes, Chair.
Okay, but you say after the elections, he was then appointed
He was then appointed
as Director General of the Department
of the
of
Department
Education.
of Education.
Okay.
You're still summarizing for us the contents of paragraph 61 to 63.
So the reason why I brought this matter is to illustrate when this HOD Hunyedi was asked to go and assist. You were taking an HOD from a department, you relieve him of his responsibility, and you place him in the office of the newly appointed HOD to go and assist and help this HOD. That is what was done to Mr. Hunyedi. And that was because of the insistence of Ace Makashule. All that he did was to come and thank me, Mr. Hunyedi, and indicated to me that he was leaving, and he left on the 13th of July, 2009. And then later, in 1st of October, 2009, I was outside the country in Germany, and at the time, the person who was acting was Thabo Manyoni. And he called me to congratulate me that he has actually found a good replacement as the head of the department, and that was Dr. Mongake.
Who called you?
Thabo Manyoni.
Thabo Manyoni called you?
Yes, he was the MEC, and when you leave somebody to act on in your position.
Yes, okay.
So he was acting as an MEC of the
Yes.
department when I was there.
Okay,
And
yes.
during that time, they went ahead with the
appointment.
interviews and appointed a person.
A person who would be the head of your own department
Yes.
without you knowing.
I wasn't there.
You were not there.
Yes.
Yeah, you knew there was a process for appointment.
There was a process. The process
Yes.
has started.
Yes.
And the interviews were called when I was away.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And then he only lasted, if you check, it was from October 2009 to the 31st of July 2010. And then it was then said he was only good as, in the local economic development because he was coming from a municipality. And then he was then taken to be a municipal manager in one of the, I think it was Fezile Dabi district. And I'm trying to illustrate this deliberately to indicate that whilst ACE would deny any involvement in appointing people, the fact that he could speak to the HODs and direct them where to go and take a decision illustrate clearly that he was heavily involved in doing that. And he did not even have the courtesy to talk to me at the time. I did not know. I would be told that this person is leaving. And the same thing happened with Dr. Mongake. He left. And then in October 2010 to November 2011, Mr. Ramayema was then became the HOD in the department. And he only lasted also up until the 14th of November. If you check, it will be almost a year or so. And then on the 15th of November 2011, and I think he went on to up until 30th of September 2014, it was Mr. Ozi Osman who became the HOD. It was when I was told to fire an HOD. The HOD that I was told to fire was Mr. Elwozi Osman.
And the replacement that Mr. Tony spoke about, whom did he have in mind?
I'm sorry, before that, can I just establish, in regard to these HODs that you have talked about, when they left, are you saying you were not consulted about whether they should go or not?
Exactly, I'm saying that, Chairperson. That's what I'm saying. From Mr. Khunyedi, ACE did not find it necessary to engage me as an MEC. All I could get would be Khunyedi is going to assist this guy, the newly appointed, and with Mr. Mongake was that is not good. It would be after the fact. And when it has happened, I would see this happen. And it happened again with the Mr. Ramayema. Yes.
But one would have expected that if a head of department was to leave, you as the MEC for that department would probably know before the Premier would know. Did you never get to know in advance that they were about to leave or to be asked to leave?
It will be a normal practice in other provinces, surely not in the Free State.
And had you voiced any complaints to the Premier about any of them before they left in terms of their performance?
Several times.
You had expressed?
Several times. I
Yes.
would complain about these things. In fact, I even went to an extent of asking him that sometimes it
Mr.
will be...
Dokwana, I think you're missing the question of the chair. The question of the chair is that whether when these HODs were told to leave, did you raise any concerns pertaining to their performance? Were you not happy about what they were doing?
Okay, no.
As
Yes,
HODs?
yes, no,
Okay.
yeah.
I do not understand that.
Before the
Okay.
decision whether they were resigning or they were being asked, whether that had been preceded by any complaints or concerns from your side expressed to the Premier about their performance?
No, not with Khunyedi,
Yes,
not with Dr. Mongake.
yes,
And the only concern I had
Yes.
at the time was with Mr. Ramayema.
yes.
There were issues that we had, and I
Yeah.
wanted to raise the matter
Yes.
with the Premier.
Yes,
And I did not get the opportunity
To
to
raise
meet
it.
with him.
yeah,
I would point out that at the time I asked for an appointment. I was given an appointment. It was in the morning, and to discuss this matter with Mr. Ramayema. And an appointment was granted to meet with the Premier. I could not meet with him at the set time. And instead, he kept on postponing me. And he would take me to go to a meeting. There was a HIV and AIDS meeting that he was chairing. He then asked me, please accompany me to this meeting. I will go with him. And because I wanted to raise these issues and some of the issues, the concerns that I wanted to raise with him regarding the then HOD. And it did not materialize. After the meeting, he then suggested that we go to another meeting. So we were moving up 8th floor, 4th floor, and I became patient because he was avoiding meeting with me. So I became patient. I wanted to meet with him at the time. And ultimately late, at about 3:30, he then said to me, I must join him. He was having a delegation from Malaysia. So we sat there, and after the meeting, he then said, I'm tired. And I could understand now, I was also tired from all these things. And he said, we meet again, we will talk about this matter. But unfortunately, this matter was then presented to the PEC meeting. I think it was a PwC meeting, where Ace himself came with a complaint to the PwC that Mr. Ramayema wanted to raise with the PEC about me, and started raising issues and about me not attending meetings, etc., a number of lies. When I rebutted those lies and retracted, and the PwC then said Mr. Ramayema should go, Ace then said, no, you don't have the powers. The powers are with me. And the question was, why then did you bring the matter here? He could not explain. And that is exactly the situation in the province that we were subjected to.
Okay, okay. No, thank you. It was a detour, but I think it might be important to give a certain perspective.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Tony, Mr. Tony Gupta told you about a suitable replacement. Who did he have in mind when he said that to you?
He just made a call. He made a call. He then said, I have a person who can become your HOD, fire this one. And I explained why I can't fire this person. Only Ace Makashula has the powers. And then he took his phone and made a call. And within a few minutes, it was not long, suggesting to me the person must have been around the compound. And Mr. Richard Seleke appeared. But I did not know him to be, that he was introduced to me as here is the person who can actually replace, become your HOD. And it was Mr. Richard Seleke, introduced as Mr. Richard Seleke. And if my memory serves me well, all that I remember was that he was the chief director at the time. It was said he's the chief director, but I don't know whether it was forestry or whatever, but it was in those departments. So it was said, this is a good guy who can actually help you through this, and this is Mr. Richard Seleke. So that was what was introduced. When he came in, he was introduced to me as such.
And was there any reaction from Mr. Makashule?
No.
When Mr. Tony Gupta said that this will be the replacement of the HOD?
No.
Now, how did this meeting conclude, your visit to the Gupta compound?
Right. After it became clear that I was not about to sign anything, and then Tony stood up and indicated that it is clear that this is not going to happen, and I was then ushered out and given a driver to take me back to the airport.
Yes.
Now, I'm sorry. Throughout this meeting, as all of these things you have told us about were being said, was Mr. Ace Makashule quiet throughout, except for one, when, according to your evidence, he nodded when Mr. Tony Gupta mentioned that every month he would take 1 million rand to him, and two, when he leaned towards Mr. Tony Gupta and whispered something to him that you did not hear, whereafter Mr. Tony Gupta asked you to give him back the letter. Was he quiet throughout that time, or is there something that he said which I may have missed or which you might remember?
No, the other occasions, but he did not say much. He would only agree. It was the occasion when Mr. Tony indicated that this matter can be ratified through the Executive Council. And he said, I've spoken to my brother here, and he nodded also. And also, when spoke about the money that they were receiving. And I think there was also one occasion where after he asked if that the project was between myself and him, and that Ace was excluded. And he said, I've spoken to him, he agrees, and Ace nodded again. So I found it very interesting because I know him to be a person who could talk, but I found him subdued in that meeting.
So, on your evidence, there isn't much that you are able to recall that he articulated other than nodding.
He said nothing.
He said nothing.
Except nodding.
And you did not at any stage while pressure was being put on you to sign this letter, you did not at any stage say, Premier or Mr. Magashule, what do you say to all of this? You didn't say that.
You know, Chair, I was really angry with him. So I did not want to say anything to him.
Yes.
Because at the time I felt really he had betrayed my trust.
Yes.
Here is a person that we had worked since 1992 and could not even tell me, just hint that this is what is going to happen.
This meeting, about how long did it last, if you are able to estimate?
Sure.
You arrived in the morning, and in terms of
think
what
it
he
should
had
have been-
told you, you were expecting to address or to have a dinner with business people at 6 p.m.
At 6.
So around what time did you arrive at the Gupta residence, if you remember?
I think it should have been around about 11, 12.
Around about 11, 12.
Yes.
And about what time was it when you actually left the meeting, to be taken to the airport?
I think I was at the airport around about 2, 3 or 3 o'clock.
Around 3 o'clock?
Yes, because I had to arrange a flight moving out.
Yes. Now, you have just told me that when the meeting concluded, arrangements were made for you to go to the airport, and as I understand it, without Mr. Magashule, even though you had arrived together. Did you ask anything about him remaining behind or anything before you left?
All I wanted was to get out of that place.
Sorry?
I just wanted to get out of the place.
You wanted to get out of that place.
I was pleased to get out of the place.
Yes.
And the way I was angry, I felt that I could do something that I was going to regret. And I actually did not want to speak to him at the time.
Yes. So you left, and he remained behind, and
Yes.
everyone else who was in that meeting remained behind.
They did.
Yeah. When Mr. Richard Selege came into the room, did he say anything after you had been told that he was the person that you could have as the HOD for your department?
He was just introduced and he said nothing.
Yeah, but he
Yes.
didn't say much.
No.
But did he remain in the meeting until you left, or did he just get in,
At
got
the time-
introduced, and left?
At the time when I was introduced, and then the meeting was over.
Or he was like the last item?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Tukwani, you neatly capture the conclusions on this topic if you have regard to page 20, paragraph 65, 66, and 67. Please take us through them. You can read them. It will speed up the process.
I was also startled that the Premier of the province brought me to the Gupta compound with the sole intention of corruptly and unlawfully advancing commercial interest of the Guptas. I'm not sure why Magashule deemed it apt and under a false pretext to bring the name of the ANC to a corrupt activity when he knew the ANC had nothing to do with the appointment letter I was expected to sign for a Gupta Link company.
And paragraph 66?
66.
Yes.
I remain startled to this day as to why the presentation I made in the Executive Council its details ended up outside persons who were not in government. I can only deduce that Tony possibly received the details of my presentation from Magashule. I cannot rule out the possibility that Magashule might have instructed someone else to furnish Tony with the said presentation.
Which presentation are you talking about here for completeness?
The content of the letter had in them the ICT hub information and also the relationship with Satya. And that information was not out to any person.
How long before that meeting, if you are able to remember, had you made that presentation to the Executive Council? A few weeks, a few months? If you are able to remember, you might not be able because of the time lapse.
Yes.
I'm just asking.
But it was, I think it was in 2011, sometime there in October, something like that.
Oh, okay. So it was the previous year, probably.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes. And had it been presented anywhere else other than in the Executive Council?
No.
Yes. And the only other...
No, let me explain. It was presented in the cluster,
Yes.
the economic cluster,
Yeah.
and it was also presented in the Executive Council.
But did you say that this letter, which had this information, that Mr. Tony Gupta came with that letter into the room where the meeting ultimately was held, with that letter when he was coming in together with Mr. Magashule after having left the same room earlier with Mr. Magashule?
They did not get into the room.
Yes.
I was ushered into the room.
Yes.
And then they
passed on to another.
Yes. And then they came back.
And when they came back, Mr. Gupta had this letter in his hand.
Yes.
And he was coming in together with Mr. Magashule and Mr. Duduzane Zuma and about 3 or 4 other people.
Yes, sir. But what is very strange, all that we had was our cell phones.
Yes.
And Mr. Magashule was not carrying a bag. He
Yes.
was in the car, but,
Yes. Yes.
So I don't know how the letter came into there.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
Yes. And you have already told the chair that you left the compound and Mr. Magashule remained in the compound.
Yes.
Yes. May I refer you to page 22? From paragraph 75, you deal with a new topic, the city for tomorrow. Could you please summarize for us the relevant facts pertaining to the city for tomorrow?
The city for tomorrow was a concept document that we were working on for what I had earlier intimated to. And this will be relevant in as far as it relates to some of the information that were in the letter that I was supposed to sign, but also with the communication that had earlier occurred between myself and Mr. Igbashama and the P3, Mr. Thomas.
Yes. Now on paragraph 75, Mr. Tukwan, you say that on the 6th July 2011, 2 days after the cabinet deliberated on the city for tomorrow concept, Sharma directly addressed an email to me into my private email account at 1419 asking for my comments, and you annex it as Annexure DM4. Who is this Sharma that you are referring to?
Igbashama.
Yes.
Of Nulane Investment.
How did he know about the deliberations that were in cabinet, within a period of 2 days?
I don't know about that. But what I know is I had met with them and related what we wanted to do. And it was at the request, the meeting was at their request, and we explained and they showed interest in helping us with the City for Tomorrow in terms of helping with the master plan, helping with the raising of funds or getting investments to do this. So this was not communicated to them at the time.
Yes. May I refer you to page 82? That's where you'll find annexure DM4. Is this the email that you are referring to in paragraph 75?
Yes, it is.
And you can take us through that email?
Should I read it?
Yes.
This is a forwarded message. It comes from Ibashama, and it was dated, it was on a Wednesday, 6th of July, 2011 at 14 hours, 19 minutes. The subject was City of Tomorrow Agreement, and it was directed to my email address, m.dukwana@gmail. That is not an official address, an official.
Had you had any prior discussion in discussions involving Mr. Iqbal Sharma about the City of Tomorrow project?
As I say, sometime, I think it was early 2011, somewhere in February,
Yes.
we had
Some
a
discussion.
meeting, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
If you turn to page 83, annexure DM5, would this be the master plan agreement which was annexing to the email?
This is the purported master plan agreement.
Yes. Now, who are the parties to this master plan?
There it says the master plan agreement entered into between the provincial government of the Free State acting through its Department of Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs and the consortium consisting of P3 International LLC, registration number 2010146100054, a company duly registered in terms of the law of the state of California, United States of America, and Nulane Investments 204 Propriety in brackets Limited, trading as Nulane Management Services, registration number 2008/020988/07, a company duly registered in terms of the law of the Republic of South Africa.
Do you know who drafted this agreement?
I beg yours?
Do you know as to who drafted this agreement?
It was surely not drafted from our offices, but it came out that it was drafted by either Mr. Ibashama or his associates.
Yes.
I see the name there, it's at Nulane Investments. Now, that's one of the entities whom you were required to appoint in terms of that letter that Mr. Tony Gupta presented to you. Is that right?
It was the only.
It was the only.
It was the only.
Yeah,
entity.
yes. But now, in terms of sequence of events, this email from Mr. Sharma together with this master plan agreement happened earlier than that meeting, or as I see your statement. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think this sequence of events we would explain as we continue.
Yes, okay.
So that the chair could understand what's happening.
Yes. So that by the time you had that meeting, you would have been able to associate Nulane Investment with that project because there would have been some communication before. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
If you may turn to page 23, paragraph 77, in order to follow on the chronology of the chair.
Page 23.
Yes, paragraph 77. And please take us through the contents of that email, of that paragraph.
Stranger, the said concept was also known to Tshepiso Magashule, son to Magashule. On the 25th February 2011, Tshepiso Magashule addressed an email to me at the request of Shama. The latter requested Tshepiso Magashule to email what is called a Free State letter to me. For ease of reference, I annex it to marked DM6, a copy of the email on the 25th February 2011, and DM7 being an email from Shama to Tshepiso Magashule dated 24th February 2011, and DM8 being a copy of the Free State letter and attachment to both emails.
Yes. And do you know what was the role of Mr. Tshepiso Magashule?
The first encounter, what I came to realize that he was now in the picture was when these emails came to my attention.
Yes.
Can I take you back a little bit to that master plan agreement? Can you talk briefly as to what it sought to achieve? Now, if it had been signed by everybody who was supposed to sign it, what would it have sought to address or to achieve?
I would not, if you allow,
or you would need to refresh your memory.
That not that. That if we go through this,
yeah,
it has other issues that I think
that
needed to be clarified.
Okay.
Because this was, as I indicated, if you look at the document itself,
yes,
was not also written by any legal person from the department. Yes. It came from Nulane. Yes. And at some stage, if you check the signatures, it would also come in that agreement, yes, it is alleged that I signed as an HOD, yes, and I also went in to sign as an MEC, yes, in the same document that we're talking about.
Okay. Maybe, Mr. Mkwena, just warn me if there's something you will deliberately leave out, because otherwise in my mind it's something that is left hanging and I don't want to forget about it. So just warn me.
We'll deal with the issues as and when you address them,
yeah,
so that you don't forget them.
Yeah, so that I know that there's a reason to leave, yes, it for now.
Yes,
okay.
We still want to pay in the chronology. If you may go to page 102, that is now annexure DM6. If you look at the bottom, is that the email that you're referring to, saying that it was dispatched by Mr. Tshepiso Magashule and it was addressed to you, Mr. Tukwana?
Yes, it is.
Yes. Let's now deal with the contents. And if you turn to page 103, annexure DM7, this is now a letter, or it's an email dispatched to Mr. G. Magashule, and it is by Mr. Iqbal Shama, am I right?
Yes, you are right.
He said that, please can you forward attached letter to the MEC, Economic Development in the province. The letter should be sent to Mr. John Thomas and CC to me on the email address as provided there. What was happening here? Was Mr. Iqbal Shama writing a letter and saying that that letter has been written by you?
This is what came out to, you know, when you read with, is when it first came, I did not understand that Mr. Magashule was now brought into the picture. And remember, Mr. Chairperson,
that is that Mr. Magashule Jr.?
Tshepiso.
Yes.
That I had had the discussions with Iqbal Shama and Mr. Thomas of P3 without Mr. Tshepiso Magashule being present. And when this came through, to me was a surprise that now they were sending this information to Mr. Magashule to send to me. Yes.
Now, if you have regard to DM8 on page 104,
I'm sorry, but I'm not sure if your answer, Mr. Tugana, covered the question. I think the question was Mr. Sharma preparing letters as if they had been written by you and having them sent to you for you to sign?
The department in question had very capable people who could do this. You had legal people, you had DDGs and all this. They were all capable to write any letter that needed to be written or any contract that needed to be entered into. There was no reason for any letter to be written by Mr. Igba Sharma and addressed to me for me to write and send it over. There was no reason whatsoever. And if ever there was any letter that needed to be written, I was capable of writing any letter. Or if I were to, recall any of the meetings that we had and whatever we shared, I was capable of doing that. There was no reason for me to have Mr. Igba Sharma doing this. So as I'm saying, there was no request. There was nothing that into this that could have prompted this to happen.
But are you confirming that what was happening now in terms of what we are dealing with here is that Mr. Sharma was sending draft letters, or I don't know if there's also a draft agreement for you to sign?
Draft letters, draft resolution, master plan, everything.
Yes, and
they were sending them.
And you say this was not by any arrangement between the two of you,
no,
that he could draft letters for you to sign?
No.
Yes, okay, thank you.
Let's clarify further that aspect, Mr. Tukwana. If you have regard to Annexure DM7 on page 103, you will see it is stated there that please can you forward attached letter to the MEC. Can you see that?
Yes.
And then if you turn to page 104, Annexure DM8, is this the letter which was attached?
Yes.
Who wrote this letter?
It was written by Igba Sharma, sent to Tepiso, to send to me.
Even though at the bottom it reflects the MEC economic development, it was not written by you.
No, it was
and
not.
It was not written by on your instructions as well.
No, it was not written by me nor my instructions.
Yes, and does Mr. Sharma or Magashule have any authority to write letters on behalf of yourself or the department?
Not at all.
So the letters were not coming on your letterheads already, on the letterhead of your office. They were coming simply as drafts, and you would, if you agreed with them and were prepared to sign, you would simply need to put them on your letterheads and then sign.
That's what the intention was.
Yeah, okay.
Now, let's go to DM8, page 104. So as for us to appreciate what did they want you to convey in the letter. Could you please read the contents of that letter?
The city of tomorrow, Inova. Dear Mr. Thomas, thank you for meeting with us to discuss our vision for the city.
Now, when it says, dear Mr. Thomas, it is as if it's you who's now writing the letter.
Yes.
So the letter that you received from Mr. Sharma through Mr. Magashule Jr., that is at page 104, namely DM8, reflects to be a letter by the MEC for Economic Development Free State, which was you, but it is addressed to Mr. John Thomas, P3 Africa Pty Limited, and it's a Sacramento, and it's about the city for tomorrow, and it's addressed, it says, Dear Mr. Thomas, as you have indicated. So it was meant to be a letter from you to Mr. Thomas. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You can read the contents.
Thank you for meeting with us to discuss our vision for the City for Tomorrow project. The purpose of this correspondence is to confirm our discussion and general agreements and to chart a path moving forward. As you know, we shall endeavor to design and construct a new high-tech city complete with all of the public and private improvements one would expect from a modern cutting-edge city. This will include schools, parks, hospitals, universities, theaters, libraries, hotels, convention facilities, recreational facilities, and all necessary streets and infrastructure. The public portion of the project will be funded by the provincial government of the Free State, South Africa, while the private improvements will be funded through private investment. As we had discussed, crucial to the development of this project will be a suitable master plan that gives form and substance to our vision. P3 Africa has agreed to prepare the master plan for the project at its expense. The master plan will be completed and delivered to the government of Free State within 12 weeks. P3 will also attach a complete end-to-end proposal to develop and manage the entire project together with a funding solution. If the master plan is properly delivered and found to be acceptable, we will then engage with P3 to discuss a possible engagement on the implementation of the project. Thank you for visiting our province and for your participation in this exciting project. Kind regards, MEC Economic Development, Free State.
And you never conveyed this thing to Mr. Thomas at all?
No.
Yes.
As a matter of interest, letters that you wrote, say official letters, would you end them like that, or would there be your name just before the designation of your portfolio?
It will not be like this. It will be my name,
Yes.
and then followed by the designation of the.
Yes. So the way this one ended is different from the way you normally ended your letters that you wrote, official letters.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
This was not the end nor the only letter which was written on your behalf, Mr. Tukwani. Can you take us through the contents of paragraph 78 on page 23? Page 23.
Yes, I'm getting there. Page
23, paragraph 78. Take us through the contents of that paragraph.
In the Free State letter, it will be noted that both P3 and Nulan had indicated that the expenses for the master plan will be borne by them respectively. But on a date, I cannot recall a letter from both companies prepared for me to address and sign to them authorizing payment of approximately 140 million to be paid to them in 6 installments next year to a copy of the said letter marked DM9.
So for ease of reference, Mr. Chair, that letter is found on page 105. Is that the letter that was also prepared on your behalf?
Yes.
You did not write this letter?
No.
Now this one, if you turn to page 106, it ends slightly different than the one that we're dealing with initially. You can see that it says kind regards and it says M. Tukwana, Office of MEC. Is this how you would normally write your letters?
Yes.
But this one was not written by you.
I beg yours?
This one was not written by yourself.
No, this was not written by me.
Yes.
Who did this? Who prepared this one? It was different. Somebody different from Mr. Sharma. Was it somebody else?
It was Mr. Sharma himself.
It was Mr. Sharma himself. Okay.
So It was Mr. Sharma, and if you go to page 105, it says, "Dear Mr. Sharma and Thomas." So he was writing to himself.
Yes, it was.
Now, may I refer you to page 23, paragraph 79. In that letter, you say, in that paragraph, you say that on the 13th October 2011, Sharma emailed me requesting assistance to coordinate a 2-day workshop session with relevant HODs and other stakeholders for the purposes of the project in issue. And you also annexed DM10, the email in question, and you say that one Mr. Salim Issa was also copied in that email. Did you receive Annexure DM10? It's on page 107. Yes.
Yes. Yes, I did.
And then you say that one Salim Issa was copied. Do you know why Mr. Salim Issa was copied? He did not appear in the previous correspondence, and on this one he is now appearing. Do you have an idea as to what was his involvement? Why is he now, was he also involved in this City of Tomorrow?
I can't recall why.
Yes.
But if I can also help in this case, all these came from the meeting. As I said, we had a meeting, their request, and we sat down and discussed what we wanted to do.
Yes.
But unfortunately, they took it further. They were in a hurry when issues needed to be dealt with. First, there was not even a land that was identified. We had not identified any land where this city would be situated. We had not done any work whatsoever. And we were just dealing with the concept and the idea. And we then agreed with them that all you need to do is to look for funds and help us with the investment for this kind. But for that to happen, we need to have a master plan that would clearly show, what our intentions were, that would detail everything. And for that to happen, you would need to have a workshop with the officials from the department and the HODs in the province, so that you get to understand what exactly we want, so that by the time you start working on this, at least you know what this entails. And the workshops were supposed to take place sometime in November.
Yes.
And you were speaking in October with them?
We started early in February.
Or
Yes.
do you have a number? Did you have a number of meetings or discussions before November?
Yes.
Yes.
I think we had 2 meetings, but in these meetings, as I say, the last meeting we were to look into the workshop, and then this matter came. So that is why I was surprised that having met with them, they would then ask Tsepiso to send, and also send all these other things. But if you check also at some stage when they came back with the other letter that purported to be written by me, that was outlining the details in terms of the payments, etc. It was also in relation to what we were talking, and there was no relevance whatsoever in the decisions that we had taken.
And at that stage, also,
Yeah, no, thank you.
at that stage when you engaged with them, there was no, they were never appointed at any stage during that time.
No, they were not.
Yes.
because I made it clear that the only time we would engage in any meaningful discussions would be once we have dealt with the master plan and we are happy with whatever they had brought to us, and two, that they had actually managed to get an investment. Then we can talk of the possible relationship moving forward with this. So as we were in November at the time, even before the workshop, then these kinds of letters were coming in, and the master plan agreement, etc. When there was no workshop that needed to take place in November. So they were just moving ahead of themselves. But it was clear the intention here was just put papers and documents and allow us to get money. And it was going to be easy money flowing from the Free State, where people will request 140 million and the project, and you pay them 140 million and nothing, If you check also what they claim to have been, what they were requesting as a master plan, it will be the presentation on the city for tomorrow. And this is what, if you look into that document, this was the document they claim was worth 140 million. If you can check there, you will see it was simply what they wanted to do, drain the state and take the money. It is not even worth the paper that it is written on.
May I refer you to page 24? It appears that they were very energetic in writing those letters on our behalf. If you go, you can take us through paragraphs 81 and 82. Then later I'll refer you to Annexure DM12.
81, attached to the email of 29 October 2011 was the notice to proceed, which appears to be a letter drafted on my behalf. It was intended that I put the said letter on the letterhead and duly transmit it as requested. I do not recall ever signing the said notice. Certainly I did not draft it. Neither was any official in my office. I annexed here to marked DM12 being a copy of the notice.
Yes.
82.
Yes.
Before you go to 82, you say you do not recall having signed it.
I did not
That
sign.
sounds like you think you may have signed. You don't want to commit yourself and say you didn't sign it, only to find that somebody produces.
No, all I know is I gave them permission to continue to proceed with the workshop.
Yes.
Not this, that the signing of the notice that was to proceed with the master plan.
Yes, what I'm asking is whether you were being deliberately cautious in saying you do not recall signing it, or whether you are quite clear that you never signed it.
With reference to the notice to proceed,
Yes.
in terms of the master plan, to proceed with the master plan thing,
Yeah.
I did not sign.
Okay.
But I was just saying, I'm not certain if I signed a letter that was
About the workshop.
giving them permission
Yeah.
to continue with the workshop,
Okay.
because we, as the department, went out to arrange such a workshop.
Yes, okay. Thank
But
you.
we can establish this with much more certainty. May I refer you to page 110, Annexure DM12. This Annexure DM12 is the one that is being referred to on paragraph 81. Now, if you look at the contents of Annexure DM12, do you recall writing such a letter and signing a letter that contains what is being stated therein?
This, as it has happened, it was a letter prepared by them, and I did not sign this letter.
So as a matter of fact, you can say that you did not sign this letter, you did not write this letter.
Yes, certainly.
Just tell us what the letter says, please, or read it.
Please.
Dear Mr. Sharma and Mr. Thomas, based on our master plan agreement, I'm pleased to give Nulane Management Services and P3 the notice to proceed with the development of the master plan for the City of Tomorrow project, a new city to be designed in the province of the Free State, as well as prepare a schematic design for the new government center to be located in the project. The master plan will involve the creation of overall plans for the project's infrastructure, public transportation facilities, sustainability and integration of services, that is governmental, housing, medical, high-tech, private development, entertainment, public safety, parks, etc. In light of local conditions and within a broader regional context, the design of the master plan will also incorporate a site for a new government center. We look forward to the planning workshop scheduled for November 15 and 16, 2011, and would like to wish you well on this groundbreaking, exciting project. Kind regards. It's my name again.
Yes, so this is what they wanted you to say to them,
Yes.
but you did not, you were not prepared to say that.
No,
Thank you.
I was not prepared to.
And fundamentally, on the first sentence, it begins by saying, based on our master plan agreement. Was there ever signed a master plan agreement by yourself or by the department?
No.
May I then refer you to page 25? And if you can take us through the contents of paragraph 84.
On 2nd January 2012, Sharma addressed an email to the HOD of my department, at the time Mr. Ozzy Osman. The said email was also copied to Ms. Nonomal Khas. The contents of the email are self-explanatory. I annexed marked DM14, a copy of the said email.
Mr. Chair, DM14 is on page 112. Can you please read the contents of that email and tell us what was happening at this time, Mr. Tukwan?
It's now from Ibas Mia Sharma. That the date is Monday, the 2nd January 2012 at 9:48. The subject is the City of Tomorrow, addressed to Ozzy Osman, and you can see the address is the DTIA, and every time they CC me using my Gmail, private email, all these letters are going through my Gmail, private, not official, but these ones were written to the HODs and others. They were official letters or unofficial letter, in fact, email addresses. Dear sir, I'm writing to you in the context of your lack of response to my mail of December 13, 2011. In terms of the agreement executed by MEC Dukwana on October 5, 2011, you were duly notified to rectify your breach within 30 days, January 13, 2012.
Let me interrupt you. Are you aware of any agreement that you executed as stated in that email on the 5th October 2011?
No.
Okay, proceed.
Your failure to respond or to ratify your breach by January 13, 2012 is going to force us to go ahead with legal proceedings against the MEC and your department. I did, however, on December 15, 2011, received a telephone call from the DG in the office of the Premier, indicating that a communication will be forthcoming from your office, but such has not been received. In the context of her spirit of engagement, I would like to invite you to meet with me between January 9 to 12 at my offices in Sandton, or I would be willing to meet with you in the Free State to try to find a resolution to your department's breach. In my previous email, I had urged you to treat this matter with the seriousness that it deserves, but you chose to ignore me. This communication will be my last effort to reach out to you, and your failure to respond will result in me pursuing legal proceedings against the MEC and your department with the assistance of the public protector on charges of breach of contract and fraud. I remain hopeful that we will be able to resolve the matter at hand. However, your response will determine my stance going forward. Sincerely,
Yes. What happened after you've received all this correspondence?
I'm sorry, before that, I'm getting confused. This letter, this DM14 of 2 January 2012, I see when I look at the bottom of the page, it says sincerely, and there is no name as to who the author is supposed to be. Who was supposed to be the author of that letter, or who was supposed to write that letter?
It's Iba Shama. Because if
Yes.
you check, the letter is from him at the top, from Iba Mir Shama, and there is his email address.
Is he addressing it to the head of your department?
Yes, he was addressing it to Mr. Ozzy Osman.
Yes, as his letter, not what he was doing with
No.
you, namely to send a letter for him to sign. This was now addressed to him.
Yes.
Yes, okay, all right.
Addressed by him. This is now him writing a letter, not pretending as if it was written by yourself.
No, it was him now writing the letter.
To the
and
HOD.
To the HOD.
Now, after receiving all these letters that we have canvassed, those that were prepared on your behalf, and this one on DM on page 112, what then happened about the issues that were raised by Mr. Shama?
If you check throughout, the impression is created that I was a willing person to accept letters written and prepared on my behalf, and I would then attach my signature and send over to them to do this. But if you read this letter, also it comes out with the frustration that now they were not receiving their money that they wanted. For instance, if I was this willing participant throughout, they would have received their money by now. But because there is no way where I accepted any of what they were doing, and this chair, if you read everything, all these emails and everything throughout the year, from the time when we met up until now, up until the last letter, this letter, that was threatening to take legal action for fraud, etc. It was then followed by the meeting early in February at the Gupta's compound. So basically, when it became clear that nothing was happening, we were not playing along, and they were not receiving what they wanted to get, then they decided to call in the masters in this case. And that is the reason, there's only reason that one, looking back throughout all these things, that one could come to that my going to the compound and asked to sign the letter, it was going to force my hand in saying all these other letters that were purported to have been written by me or signed by me. In this case, now I have accepted and signed and given this. It was actually their attempt, the last attempt now, to make me do what they had failed to make me do during all this writing of these letters. And the last was to take me to the Gupta's compound, where they thought that I would be made to sign the letter that was there, because the letter was not necessarily different from many of these letters. It was bringing everything, but in this case, it was actually giving them the authority to be the people who would deal with this, if you like, the 10 key project manager.
Projects.
Yes, so they will take over everything. That was actually handing now everything that is here, even if it was at an initial stage. And it is clear that all that was this, it was not an interest in developing the city, what we were aspiring to do, but it was actually to milk the province dry and get the money out of the province. And this is all that I can conclude on what actually transpired in this project.
That is now by the time that the meeting at the Gupta residence happened. You are saying this is the background to that meeting, and what happened at that meeting must be viewed against this background of these emails and these requests and the fact that you were not cooperating.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yes. Let's go back to this letter from Mr. Sharma addressed to the head of your department, DM14. In the second sentence, he says in the first sentence, he is writing to the HOD in the context of his lack of response to his email of December 13, 2011. Is it your understanding that there had been such a letter directed to him as opposed to any emails and correspondence that was directed to you by him? Or is it something you are not sure about, that reference to a previous letter of December?
I don't know about this letter, but I know of the emails that they had written and wanting me to attach my signature.
Yes.
The agreement, the master plan agreement,
Yes,
everything.
yes.
So it was, I think it was in reference to some of these things.
Did your HOD report to you any attempts by Mr. Sharma or by Mr. Sharma and them to him to get certain things done?
No.
He never. You are not aware that they were writing to him directly, asking him for anything?
No, I was not aware.
Yeah, and you just knew of the correspondence directed to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Okay, so you never discussed with him. You don't know whether even this reference to that letter of December 13 is something that existed or didn't exist. You don't know.
No.
Yeah.
Can I just indicate, just to bring this to, if with what I had explained in terms of the HODs, when it became clear to me that I was actually being set to fail in the department with this turnover of HODs, just to make sure that I'm being disorganized deliberately and not to move anywhere. But also it was informed, by what I had observed, that any project that will bring any sustainability in terms of development is not what was in the interest of what was happening in the province. And so when all these things happened, I then decided to establish a task team. And because every time you would have to go to a new HOD and explain yourself what you wanted. So it was then the task team that was driving this. It was in November when the HOD was appointed. And it was a time when we were now going on recess and, on holidays. And when we came back, it was in January when these things were now happening. And late January, we were back in office. So I did not have any time to have any briefing and engagement with Mr. Osman on this matter and many other issues in the department. So in fact, I did not get an opportunity to discuss many issues, because immediately after this saga, it was a visit to the Guptas, and later on, 2 weeks or so, I was then fired.
Okay, thank you.
Now, while still on page 112, if you look at the date of that email, is the 2nd of January 2012. Can you see that?
Yes.
And earlier on, you told the chair that you then visited the Gupta compound around February 2012.
That's correct.
That is now after this letter being written
After
by
this
Mr. Iqbal Sharma.
Yes, that's correct.
And you were then fired
Yes, I was.
around February 2012.
22nd.
Could you
of
take the
February.
chair through how you were dismissed?
Chair, I think it was on a Monday. I don't know what the 22nd was, but it was on a Monday. Some of the MEC had gone out, were out of the province. And I went to the Premier and wanted to know if we were going to have an executive council meeting that Wednesday. Because I needed to go somewhere. And seeing that many of my colleagues were out of the country. And he responded that, no, there's nothing. And then I left on the 21st. I came to Joburg for an official meeting, official engagement. And on the 22nd in the morning, whilst I was in the meeting, there was, a call that will come in, frequently. I then decided not to ignore it anymore. I went out, and then when I answered the call was Elsabi Rockman, the then DG of the Free State, who indicated to me that the Premier wanted to talk to me. And I held on, and then we got cut, and the phone call, the same call came through from the same number. And when I answered, I thought now I was speaking to the Premier, and then I said, yes, Mr. Premier, and it was only to discover that it was Mamiki Kabate on the other side. I can't remember what portfolio she was occupying because there was a lot of movement in the Free State. But she was an MEC, and she was the Deputy Secretary of the province. And then Comrade Mamiki indicated to me that the Premier was unfortunately unable to talk to me because he was busy in consultation because of what he intended doing, and that was to reshuffle the Executive Council, and he was making sure that by 11 o'clock, because the announcement was going to be made at 11 o'clock on the 22nd of February 2012, and now she was sent to talk to me. She then intimated to me that the Premier wanted to bring about 50-50 spread in the Executive Council and wanted to bring in a woman, and therefore had decided that I must go. I knew there and there that the reason was not because of the 50-50, but it was because of the frustration that they did not get what they wanted. But I chose to take it on my stride, on the chin, and immediately I asked to be excused. I just told the meeting that something had happened in the province, and there were changes in the executive. There's going to be a reshuffle, etc. So I left, went to the airport, flew back, and when I got into the office, I found the staff already, because I was worried. I wanted to be the first one to tell them. But already on my way to the airport, on my way from the airport, on the news, it was now coming in as a news item that a reshuffle has taken place, and Ngolisi Dukwana, be myself, had been sacked, and a new MEC, I think it was Mema Lieto, and was now sworn in, and I was to vacate the office with immediate effect. And
at that time, Mr. Tukwana, did you receive any communication from the Premier? Did he speak to you at any time?
Up until today,
No, up until the time when you even saw your dismissal from the media?
No, the Premier had not said anything from that day and up until it was in the news. And even, as I say, up until now, he has never said anything.
Yes.
Do you mean since the day you were told that you were being dropped from the Executive Council Provincial Cabinet, the Premier has never spoken to you and you have never spoken to him?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. The only person who gave me the information, the news was Mamiki Kabati, and she indicated that she was sent by the Premier. But the Premier never communicated to me, not any time after, even after the announcement, and nothing. And even when we met in the PwC, in the PEC, he pretended that nothing had happened. He said nothing, and I chose not to even bother him about that.
Oh, well, I was about to ask whether you didn't say that you were still provincial treasurer in 2012 and how it could be that you have never spoken to him, but I think what you meant was he has never spoken to you about your dismissal.
No, he had never.
The two of you have spoken about other things, maybe in a PC meeting or something like that since then.
I think our relationship for some time soured because he believed that I was managing him. I'll make an example, Chairperson. At some stage when there was this Lasela project, the Premier had a tendency of calling all other officials without the MEC concerned and would deal with the Lasela thing. He asked my department to provide 50,000 for each municipality, about 5 municipalities, which will be used to build the car wash in those municipalities for young people as this Lasela project was going to Wate. When the official, the late Butima Tebula, came to inform me about that, I felt that it was unfair because every department, you have budgets, etc. And the budget, the economic development department was actually cut to the bone. And so I went to him and I expressed my dissatisfaction on the matter and explained to him and advised them that, I mean, it is not fair that the Free State young people should only be thought of better to be involved in businesses that relate to car washing, etc., and that were not sustainable at the time. I mean, if you go to the city in Vredefort, if you have a car wash, I used to joke with the colleagues, Bongile Pesani, that it will only be the cars, your teacher, your police, and some people who will come to the funeral. So it was not going to be a viable project, that I said to him when I argued the matter. And he agreed with me and asked me to, give me 5,000 because I already promised them that I will do something so that I can buy, machines, what do you call this? Cutting off as Bizondon.
For the car wash or
no.
something else? For the hair, the salons?
Clippers.
Oh.
Hair clippers. And then I agreed. It was cheaper, 25,000 for 5. I said, okay. It took place on a Thursday, that meeting. On a Friday, and on a Monday, nothing. On a Wednesday after the Executive Council, I received the notice from my office that there was a meeting on Thursday in the 8th floor in the Lewan building, now the OR building. And everybody is expected, no apologies. So I went to this meeting the following day, Thursday, and only to find the Premier was rambling, saying all sorts of things. I mean, you had called CFOs or called HODs in the department, MECs, and he was just talking about people who want to manage him, etc. So I did not worry because I thought that he was not talking about me or referring to me. We had sorted our things. I had gone to him and to men. And only when my colleague, Kusta Khotule, then said, you have actually spoken so long. Why don't you mention these names? Whoever is doing this. And then he said, my brother, I'm always Dugwana here. You think you can manage me, etc. So at the time I felt bad because, I wanted to respond to him. And I felt that if I responded in the presence of the officials, it will be bad. It will be undermining the office that, even if I had issues with him, out of respect of the office, I was like, let me not respond. But at the same time, also I was put in a fix because here are the officials that I'd spoken to and indicated to them I'd agreed with the Premier. So I will be now dubbed a liar by these officials and they will never believe in me, So I then decided and asked the Premier that if I could speak, and he said yes, and I said, wouldn't it be advisable that you allow these people to move the officials because I don't think this needed them here. If there was anything else, if there was nothing else to, and he said, no, I've spoken to them, I've spoken about this in their presence, you can go on. And I pleaded with him, and when I realized that he was not going to budge, so I spoke and I told him how I felt about him at the time. And it was at the time when I raised all these issues. In fact, it went to a situation where I was ridiculing him, in fact. An example, I indicated that I'm not surprised that he was such a slow learner because I had found that from Thursday, you realize you're not happy with what I had gone to you, man to man, one-on-one. And you're still thinking about it up until Wednesday. It took you so long to realize that you are being managed here. Something that you could have raised with me during the PwC meeting or during the Executive Council. Or you could have called me and told me, either way, you're the Premier, you're the boss. You could have just told me, I don't agree with you, I do this. But you chose to call the officials, the MECs, just to address this matter. And I found it very ridiculous. At the time, the MEC, who's now the Premier, then asked that there should be an Executive Council caucus. That was the first Executive caucus that we had and the last Executive caucus. So I'm just saying at the time I felt that the relationship between the two of us was not okay. And also it was at the time that it was becoming clear because I went to him and indicated to him that I've been asked to stand for the position of the chairperson. I was going to contest this position. And I think, knowing him, I think he did not take it kind. But when I was there, he pretended that it's okay. But you would know, chairperson, that he has been the chairperson for this long. But we know it's not because he was this popular person in the province, but it was because of his manipulation of all the processes also and everything that he has done up until this time. So it was not surprising to me that he felt this way about me. That also that I was contesting him in the elective conference was to be later in 2012. And the fact that also that he took me to the compound and I said nothing happened. And I think that actually broke the camel's back.
So going back to the question, the two of you never talked about the dismissal,
No.
your dismissal, but that doesn't mean you have never spoken to each other about whatever else.
No, we have spoken about some
About
other
other
things,
things,
but
yeah.
not this one.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
May I refer you to wrap up this point to page 27, paragraph 88, please read it. And please comment on it. Page 26.
26.
Yeah, 26, paragraph 88.
I verily believe that I was fired as MEC for refusing to approve and cooperate with the P31 and Nulane in common purpose with Magashule to loot the state resources to advance commercial interest of the Gupta family through state capture.
And that's the reason why you believe that you are fired.
Yes, I have no doubt that was the reason, as well as the fact that I was contesting him.
Yes.
And let me ask, after you had been dismissed from the Executive Council on the basis that he wanted to ensure a 50-50 representation of women in the Executive Council, were you replaced by a woman?
Yes, I was, by Matabo Leto.
Yes, and before your dismissal, what was the representation of women on the Executive Council compared to men?
There were 6 men and 4 women,
Yes.
in excluding the premier. If you bring the premier, it will be 7, and then 4, because the executive is made of
11.
10 people plus the premier. It's 11.
Yes. So with you being replaced by a woman, that brought the representation of women to 5. So it was, if you look at the whole Executive Council, it was 7 men and 5 women.
It was 6 and 5.
6
but
and
if
5,
you check,
I'm sorry, yes.
because it's 10,
Yes.
MECs, 1 premier.
Yes, so it was 50-50 if you look at MECs.
At MECs, it would be 50. It was 50-50.
Yes. So from that point of view, it may look like he achieved what he wanted if by 50-50 he meant an equal representation of men and women in terms of MECs. It may look like that. That's what I'm saying.
It was just a justification of what he wanted to do.
But you are saying it was not the true reason for your dismissal. That's what you say.
It is not, because the resolution that they referred to was taken in 2007 at the National Conference. And in 2009, he was appointed premier.
Yes.
And it was him who constituted the executive the way he did.
Yes, yes.
And to come in 2012 to
Yes.
say, as an afterthought,
Yes.
that there was this decision taken in conference to
Yes.
make sure there is 50-50, and now I'm implementing this.
Yes.
And also the fact that I was also an official as well as the deployment committee member. This matter was never discussed anywhere.
Yes.
It was a decision that he took alone.
Yes.
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 And then consulted others.
Yes. Okay, thank you.
From paragraph 89, you make certain observations. Mr. Tukana, could you please take us through them?
To date, I find it startling how persons outside government knew of the data hub my department had proposed in a cabinet meeting. Even startling is the involvement of Tsepiso Magashule in this project directly or indirectly. 89.1, did the Gupta family members have access to letterheads of Free State government, including that of my office? This is in reference to the letterhead that that I saw in the letter that I was supposed to sign at the Gupta family house. Who authorized this? Meaning, who authorized the access of letterheads of Free State government by the family? And we invited P3 and Nulane to make a presentation at the cabinet meeting, surely because I did not. And this chairperson was also a strange habit that happened in the province of the Free State. that the Executive Council is supposed to, as an executive authority, you're supposed to move away from any matter that has to deal with tenders, etc. You set up policy and what you want to do. But in the provincial, since the takeover, I've served in many other executive council, but you could see that there was a change in pattern and how the system was operating. This time, you would have business people who would be invited to make presentations to the Executive Council in the presence of all other officials, your HODs or CFOs, and it will happen during the same day when the Executive Council is supposed to sit. In the morning, it will be all this presentation. You start the Executive Council at 9 o'clock. It will go on presentation after presentation. And then after 5 o'clock or so, you go for a break, and then you go start with the Executive Council. That will run up until very late in the evening. So in essence, what we were then brought into as the executive members was in conflict with what the law demanded of us. We were indirectly now participating in what was happening. When we make a presentation to the whole Executive Council, plus the HODs, when an instruction goes out to say, you go and help these people, any person, any HOD would not question this because the whole Executive Council was there. So this is actually the tendency that helped propel the capturing, if you like, of the province of the Free State and the corruption that then followed throughout the reign of Ismail Khashule.
You speak as if this was a normal occurrence of business people making presentations to the Executive Council. Was it a normal occurrence, or was it something that happened once here, twice there?
During, just to give, during the terror era, it never happened. During the late Mamu Ivy Matipe Kasaburi, it never happened. During Mewinki, the late Mewinki Dirego, it never happened. During Me Beatrice Marshoff, it never happened. It started happening in the province. In fact, just to simplify what actually happened, you destroy the system and you create your own system. In fact, as a member of the Executive Council, you have taken an oath of confidentiality. And now for you to be in the Executive Council, and many other people who had not taken that oath would be in the Executive Council. Any information that is supposed to be dealt with by the Executive Council found itself to other people, wrong elements. In fact, you sit in the meeting as an Executive Council, there will be other people who are not members of the Executive Council, not the DG, not the Secretary of the Executive Council. And you get many people who just sit in the meeting, and this led to information getting out, some business people getting information beforehand and coming back and making presentation. So I think this would also be elaborated when I come back again in terms of the capture of the Free State and the corruption and the abuse of office by the former Premier in the Free State.
So you will still deal with a number of these issues in due course. You'll come back and deal with them.
In detail, in detail.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much.
89.4.
Why did Makhashule take me to the Gupta compound? These are the questions that one is asking. Those are questions I leave to the Commission to investigate.
Yes. You preface a topic which you said you're going to deal with later when you come back for the second time to the Commission, the trip to Nkandla. Do you want to summarize to the Chair the importance of that topic?
The importance of this is to introduce the Sam family in the Free State the Pillai brothers, Dina and Dilosin Pillai, who were introduced to us way back in 1994 when we were still two regions. And after the elections in 1994, the five of us were taken on a trip to Wild Coast, paid for, organized and paid for by the Pillai brothers. It was myself.
Did you say the five of you?
Ace Makashule, myself, as the deputy chairperson of the Northern Free State region. The late Vax Maeki, so Pet Matosa, and Tate Mahwe. So we were introduced to these Pillai brothers. And at the time, it was in 1994, and apparently they were in Kwakwa or operating in Kwakwa. So they came into the picture. And you will find them when we got into government. Then Pillai, Dina Pillai became ACE's PA. And you will see immediately when I come back, when ACE was dismissed in 1996, they disappeared. When he came back, especially when he came back as a premier, they were back in full force, and we will explain in details some of what they've been there. But in relation to the trip to Nkandla, immediately after we were sworn in, we had two official trips. One was to Nkandla, and the trip to me was what I think the premier at the time felt that he owed this to the then president, just to thank the president, because you would know that since 1994, in fact, not on 1994, it was a decision that he also had taken. But later, subsequent years, he was overlooked as the premier of the Free State. And in 2009, when he was appointed, we went to Nkandla. We were led, directed by these brothers, and all the way to Nkandla, where we were met by the then president, Mr. Jacob Zuma, in his compound. Yes.
No, thank you. But you say when you come back, you'll deal with.
We'll give all the details.
All the details.
Exactly,
No, thank you.
Of this family and every best.
Thank you.
Chair, we should be done in 15 minutes. I see we are closer to 4 o'clock, but we are just about to finalize.
No, that's fine. We can finalize.
May I refer you to Annexure X1, Exhibit X1.
Exhibit. So when we read the transcript later on, Mr.
It's
Mkwena,
Exhibit
we don't get confused as to which one is Exhibit X1, which one is Annexure X1.
It's a long page. It's been a long day.
All right.
Are you there?
Where?
If you may turn to page 12 and take us through that heading, the contents of that heading, the invitation to the Oak Bay offices.
Invitation to the Oak Bay offices.
You can summarize it. I'm sure that you know what transpired, unless you want to read it.
Yes, I think the date was Friday, the 10th of January, 2014. The meeting was scheduled for 2:30. I was invited by Tony. Remember, it was after I had resigned as a member of the legislature. I resigned in 2012. And 2013, I was not involved with government or the legislature. So in 2014, Tony called me and invited me to their offices in Catherine Street in Sandton. And in that, out of interest also and curiosity, I wanted to find out what could be the reason. So I came and I was given the direction, and I came, and then I met him, and in the meeting he just wanted to know, as a caring person, he wanted to find out how I was doing, what was happening in my life, whether I had plans, etc., and all those things, and referring to me as a brother and all those things. And then in the midst of the discussion, he then indicated to me, well, that he warned me against standing or contesting Ace Magashule. I should have left him to finish with the province and work with, as a premier in the province, and we could have had some plans, etc., and wanted to know of my plans. And I then indicated to him that with the time that I had spent from 1994 up until now, I thought that it was wise just to take a back seat and be with my family, because I had neglected them for quite a long time. And then he understood, and as I was about to leave, he then said to me, for all your troubles, here is the traveling expense, and he gave me 10,000 rand.
He gave you 10,000 rand in cash?
In cash.
And the Tony that you're talking about, is it Tony Gupta?
Yes.
Is it the Tony Gupta that you told the chair that you visited at the Sahara offices with Mr. Magashule?
The same Tony.
Yes. And you also told the chair how he interacted with Mr. Magashule about their intended businesses?
The same Tony.
Yes. You also told the chair how you were uncomfortable during the meeting at the compound when he offered you a bribe at the time. I think it was in 2012.
Yes, the same Tony.
Yes, but then why did you meet with him in 2014
As I
against the background and the facts that you've told the chair?
Chairperson, when everything has happened, and also because of what I was busy doing, especially emanating from the Jagersfontein issue, I started trying to find out, to follow the story and find out exactly what happened and why this Jagersfontein saga. And when I come back again, I would explain and how it linked with everything, especially in the diamond sector. So I wanted to, it was out of curiosity from me, so I wanted to go to him, and when he called, I then went. And it was very interesting because I thought he would be angry or something, but he came out as a person who was trying to find out more about me and my family and what was happening. But the other, I could say also it was like a person who was like ridiculing me, that I told you not to contest ACE because at some stage there was that engagement. So I'm just saying, when he then offered the 10,000, I mean, I traveled from Valcom, and the person says it's petrol money, it's not in a bag, anything. So I took it, not because it was meant to do anything. I was out of government, and there's nothing. It was not linked to anything. So here is a person who says, you have used your petrol to come here, and I'm giving you this. So they have a lot of money. They give you 10,000, and it's okay. So
10,000 for petrol.
Yeah, it was a very interesting 10,000.
When he called you, subsequent to which you traveled and met with him, did he ask you to come and see him? How did that happen?
No, he called, and as I say, very strange, all these things. He called, and it was not only the last call. This time he called and he wanted to know and said, please, you can come over this date, and then we met. I went, as I said, it was in January. But what is also interest is later in 2017, whilst we were preparing for the national conference, way back towards November, he called and he was in Dubai. And that is why I wanted all these records, the telephone records. He was in Dubai, and he indicated to me that there were people who were out to destroy them, and they had moved out of the country, and all that. Now they are based in Dubai, but they are coming in and out of the country. And that was it. It was just that courtesy call. So it kept on my mind. I wanted to establish, but why all these that were happening after this saga that with them. But this is exactly the record of my experience with them.
Now, before you got this call from him, subsequent which you had a meeting with him, before that and after your dismissal, in between, had you been in touch with him at any stage, or had he been in touch with you, or this was just the first call since you had been dismissed?
No. After that meeting, there was one call, and he was just talking generally that, no blood, no bad feelings. It was way after the provincial conference. And then the next one was this. But that one was just I wanted to say hi and how are you, then that was it.
So there had been two or so, or one or two phone call. One phone call, and then the next one was about the meeting.
And the last call. That was the last call. It happened in 2017.
Yes. It may look strange that you would travel all the way to meet him in circumstances where you had parted in a very different atmosphere, where the person was trying to pressurize you to sign something you were not prepared to sign, and you had left. But there is something you did say to explain how come you agreed to come. I just want to make sure I understand that clearly. Will you just repeat the explanation why you would get a call from him and travel all the way from the Free State to Johannesburg to meet with him? Particularly as I understand the position, it doesn't look like in the phone call, he told you anything specific that he wanted the two of you to discuss.
I accept. But I was a man, on a mission, Chair. I wanted to uncover some of the things that I wanted to add the dots to, especially with regard to this. I thought that I would get just to get to know, and maybe he would say something. So, as I say, it was just curiosity driving me, and there was nothing. But also the fact that after all this, he was able to make a call way back in 2013, and just it was a friendly call and nothing. So there was nothing that actually could have given me an impression otherwise that would make me feel that there was no need. But also, as I say, I really wanted to hear what he wanted to say and what he had to say. That's all that I wanted to do. Yes.
And after that meeting with him, excuse me, were there any telephone conversations between the two of you prior to him phoning you from Dubai in 2017?
No.
So there was just this other call which he made from Dubai. Yeah, because that does sound strange as well, that against all the background that he would phone you in 2014 and the two of you meet. Then something like 3 years or so passes, and then he phones you all the way from Dubai to just say that now he's in Dubai and so on.
It's strange. It's strange, you know. If you look at it, it is strange, but very interestingly, to me, I took it that the man was under pressure. And at the time, I was involved in the campaign, in the ANC. I was involved, in this campaign for President Cyril.
Yeah.
And I thought that the call was made deliberately because he was aware that, that I'm in this campaign. And therefore, he needed to have an ally in an event trying to find out what I would say. So it was not strange in that regard to me when he made that call, because I think he thought that, or he might have thought that I would say some things, or he would start trying to establish some relationship of some kind. Because to me, he was just saying, look, there are many people, there are people after us, and after all that we have done, good we have done in the country, and now we are out, and I'm left, and my family has moved out. We just coming out business. That's all that we are looking after. And I mean, for a person to call you and say that, and knowing the relationship that you might have, I had no other relationship with Tony. I had no other relationship with the family, other than these meetings that took place, and also what happened in 2012. And these other calls. But other than that, that is what would be strange. But I think it could be unraveled if the commission were to investigate further on some of these things.
Yes.
But as I say, to me, I just understood that here is a person from the other side trying to get a person they would think they have actually dealt with at some stage. It will be easy for them to talk to me because I don't think he would have felt comfortable speaking to any other person.
Okay, thank you.
Just to assist you to clarify this aspect of your testimony. I mean, the picture that you painted before the chair about Tony is that he must be this corrupt person who wanted you to engage in unlawful activity, including having to sign a letter and offering a bribe. Why do we take his money, the 10,000?
Chair, as I say, the situation here is a person. I've traveled to a meeting that is arranged by him, and if a person gives you that, the money to travel back, the petrol money, I did not find anything unto it. I did not think about that as money that was meant to ask me to do anything because I was out of government and all that. But also, I think looking at where he's seated, etc., it was out of pity, or it was just pity me, if you like. It was ridiculing me. That's what I thought as I was leaving, that,
maybe
with hindsight.
ridiculing you that you turned down 2 million rand a month over
Yeah,
a long period. That
no,
now,
ridiculing me that we told you not to do this.
now you take 10,000 rand.
And then take this. So that, to me, at the later stage, I thought, okay, this could be the case, but it could also not be the case.
Yes, okay.
I wish I could also be ridiculed by 10,000 instead.
Well, it's a very interesting ridicule.
Yes. Can I refer you to page 13? Of
Page?
X1. 1.3.
Yes.
You are dealing with a new topic there on the gangster state by Peter Louis Mybeck. Can you simply summarize what you want to convey to the chair about what you have
maybe
read?
Before he does that, Mr. Mkwena, I hope you understand what I was saying. From his own point of view, he may have been thinking, look at him, he rejected a lot of money, but he does need money now. That might have been from his point of view. That's what I was saying.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Yeah. Okay.
I won't repeat what I've said. Can I refer you to page 13? Gangster State by Peter Louis Mybeck. If you can simply summarize to the chair what you wanted to convey to him
Chair,
after having read the book.
this is an interesting book that came onto our shelves, the bookstores, on the 31st of March this year. I had an opportunity to be interviewed, several times by the author, and the most interesting thing is a number of issues that are raised in this book are things that one is familiar with, and the characters that are mentioned here are characters that I am familiar with, and events that are taking place are actually events that are reflected here. Many of these events are actually a reality that exists in the province. And when the author was at some stage, characterized as advancing white monopoly capital, etc., all these other things, as I said at the time, coming from the history of these gallant leaders, Nelson Mandela, Walter Sisulu, you name them, Govan Mbeki, and their commitment in building a non-racial society. It is sickening every time when people have to deal with issues. We found a way of hiding behind racial undertones. For instance, corruption is corruption, it has no color. If you white and you go commit this, you know what you are doing. And the ANC has not sent any person to do all these other things that many of our current leaders are accused of. And in this case, when this book was, some people tended to refer to it as fake news or fabrication. And the question to me that came to mind was, had they given themselves enough time to read this and look into what this book is raising? An example, Chairperson, you have a project of 230 million rands that is meant for helping the poor in terms of dealing with asbestos, the asbestos house. And that was not only for auditing of the asbestos houses in the Free State, but it was also meant to remove these asbestos roofing. But the money was spent, and as we speak, there is no house that or any roofing that was removed from this project. And you're talking about a project, if you check into the details, it is a project that for auditing one house, each house that you audited, you paid 1.5 thousand. That is ridiculous to understand also that you are dealing with a state that has no money. That is, this could have been dealt with in any state that you have visionary leaders. It could have been dealt with by sending out your ward committees without spending a cent to do the audit. If you were as a ward committee in my ward, you would know how many of these houses that are asbestos roofed, and that information would be related to government without spending a cent on auditing these asbestos. And then the project to remove this asbestos house will then commence. For instance, the logic, if you take this to the logical conclusion, how would you quantify the project to be 230 million when you have no idea how many of these houses are that you need to deal with, and then this amount of money is paid? And to make it worse, you still also, as I say, when one comes back, these things would be laid to bear and clarified further. If you have this amount of money and it's spent the way it is spent and the way things happen, you can't have even, there must be something wrong with your the bill of quantity. To have a project of 230 million, throughout you're getting every time you do this, there's some profit you make. But at the end of it, the department pays 77 million rand as the final settlement to the project and to this company. And this company, in their own papers, the person who is now, in court trying to get the other amount of money, is actually intimating that that was their profit. That 77 million was their profit from the deal. And they shared 17 million because it is alleged that one of the directors indicated that the public protector had warned them that they had been overpaid by 60 million. And therefore, that was the reason why he removed money to this other account. But there's a court challenge to get the 30 million. And the department also, the head of the department, Tim Mokhesi, had deposed evidence, affidavit to this effect relating to this project. So I'm just saying, just simply to dismiss the book as fake news without getting into the details and what actually transpired. You're talking about the houses in 2009, 2010, when Tokyo Squale, then minister, actually wanted to take the money from the Free State. And there was an advance payment that was meant to make sure that money was not taken from the province. And as we speak, almost 500 million that was meant to deal with providing a proper shelter for people is unaccounted for. And this is right in the book, and this is the information that we have. Simply dismissing it as fake news is like, running away from facing the reality that is taking place in the province. I am from that province. I know exactly what is happening in the Free State. You have municipalities that are corrupted. We don't have municipalities that are functioning. So there's a whole range and myriad of processes, and we will detail how this started and why you have ACE at the helm of everything. And the only excuse that he will always bring to fore is, I don't sign anything. But everything we will show that it has the hallmark of this person and the intention to corrupt everyone that came across him. But as I conclude, Chair, in this case, as you look into this, and not out of disrespect for the statement that was released by the NEC, etc., as I say, when one looks back and the kind of leadership that the ANC had, and you look at what we have and what is actually happening, you begin to understand some of the things as they unfold, especially when you have a person as now as the Secretary General, who from time to time, since when he was the ANC in the Free State chairperson, he has always hidden himself behind the organization. When he has to face everything on his own, he does this thing, and every time he's challenged, it is like we challenge in the ANC. When we're actually dealing with an individual, I think it is with this in mind that as a disciplined member of the ANC, not coming here I'm not here because I need publicity, etc. I'm here because of what I have come to experience and also know exactly what happened in the province and what is happening in the province. And one would like to see, as we talk of a better life for all, etc., that we actually live what we say. And that people, at the moment, people think that is everything that people are talking about, that is the ANC. That is not the ANC that I know. And surely these are not the caliber of ANC leaders that we have come to know. And one would like to have an opportunity to make sure that the young ones that are coming would actually learn that there was a time when you had good leaders. There was a time when you had leaders that cared much about society, not selfish leaders, not toxic leadership that we have come to experience in our lifetime now, especially for the young generation. And for a person like me who had experienced that kind of a leadership and coming in the environment of toxic leadership in the province, this is one thing that motivated me to come here and say, I really would want to put everything to the commission, and hopefully this matter would be dealt with, and those who are guilty and those who are found guilty, the law will take its course, and these people will be brought to book, because with what has been happening, people are doing all these things knowing exactly that there's nothing, there are no consequences. And that is why in the country we have this rampant corruption taking place. Because people know that if you hide your tracks, you will not be found. It's like a person who is a rapist, but because he has not been caught and he has not been charged, he would be parading as he's not a rapist, but he's a rapist. The only thing is he has not been caught. And there are many of these in our country, and surely in the ANC, who are actually thieves, corrupt to the bone, and they actually just dismissing the good name of many gallant fighters of this movement and many people who actually are leaders in society. And this also is motivated by the fact that as politicians, as executive members, we are unable to take responsibility. Every time we push the officials under the bus, they are the ones who have to take the responsibility for our irresponsible, selfish, and greedy actions. But unfortunately, these poor officials find themselves under the bus all the time, and nobody, and in fact, we've got many of these politicians who are seen to be brave, just like bullies, but they are afraid to face the reality, and nobody is able to take and stand up and say, I did this, and and defend the officials. They tell, for instance, in the case of Ndade Ace, he would not sign, of course, but he would take a phone and call you and instruct you, and if you challenge him, he will tell you, surely I did not sign, because they believe that when it comes to this, it will be your word against their word. They had not signed anything, but the intention and everything, you will see it points out to what they actually say. And for people to talk of the leaders that have not stolen anything, that is not for me to comment. But I'm just saying I'm hopeful that this commission would help us unravel a number of things using this book and many other information will unravel what has been happening in the province of the Free State and why this rampant corruption taking place in these provinces. And the fact that the municipalities in the Free State were not seen as the sphere of government, but they were seen only controlled at the provincial level and operating without power, to deal with this. You have a municipality in Malutapofu owing almost 3 billion to electricity, and you have an official who's there, who's responsible for many other things. What do? You see this person in the list coming in and being defended by ACE and going out and parading this Vusi Chabalala as the one great leader who has ever led the Malutapofu when you have this mess. So I'm just saying, this was with that in mind that I needed to bring this and to say, we will come back to this commission and provide more details of what we are saying.
Mr. Tukwana,
Thank you.
in conclusion, may I refer you to page 2 of Exhibit X1. We are now concluding a testimony with particular reference to paragraph 4, where you state that before I deal with the amendments, it is apt that I clarify something in relation to my appearance at this commission. My appearance at this commission does not in terms of the ANC constitution constitutes an act of misconduct as per clause 25.17. Then you quote it in. And may I also refer you to page 6, paragraph 5. Maybe that's how you want to conclude the evidence. Can you read that into the record?
In the circumstances, my appearance at the commission is consistent with what is expected of a disciplined member of the ANC who wants good for his or her country.
Mr. Chair, that concludes my questions for this witness.
Thank you. Let me just ask a few questions, Mr. Tukwana. Let's go back to the master plan agreement, Annexure GM5 at page 83 in Exhibit X, where your main statement is, page 83.
Yes.
Now, you remember that you said that this master plan agreement was sent to you by Mr. Sharma, is that correct?
That's correct, sir.
But I think you did say something which I understood to be that it may have been drafted by somebody within the department, your department, or within government, provincial government?
No.
Or not really?
No, I indicated that we have capable people who could draft this
yes.
kind of
But as far as you know, it was either drafted by Mr. Sharma or by other people outside of the provincial government?
Yes, correct.
Yes. And now, obviously, it makes various provisions for various things. Do you know, did you ever get a chance to read the terms and conditions of that master plan agreement?
No.
You never looked at them?
No, because I felt there was no need for me to read this
Yes.
because it's not my document. I have no interest in this.
Yes. You were not coming across the name master plan or master plan agreement for the first time, or were you?
No.
Yes, you knew about a master plan or master plan agreement.
I knew about us developing a master plan
Yes.
or agreement.
Yes, or a master plan.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And in the discussions that you had with them, Mr. Sharma and them, whoever they were that you said you were talking to from about February, you had talked about the master plan, but you had not talked about concluding any master plan agreement.
No. As I stated, Mr. Chairperson,
Yeah.
that it started from February
Yes.
2011 up until the issue was to be dealt with in November.
Yes.
After the workshop,
Yes.
they will then go back
Yeah.
and they will then do their work.
Yeah.
And once they have dealt with everything, they will come back to us and then we will discuss. It will
Yes.
be then that we would agree on the way forward.
Yes.
And that was what we had discussed with them,
Yeah.
with Nulane and the P3 representatives.
P3, yeah.
So it became strange when they now presented a master plan before the workshops, before all other things. And also worse was when they presented a what they would call a master plan of the city of tomorrow. And if you look at this, that is exhibit, that's DM3 on
What
page 38.
What page?
38.
38.
If you look at this, Chair, and I'm saying any person who is not even a technical person like myself, the question, Chairperson, is, can anyone in his right mind pay 140 million for this? This is what they call the master plan that we needed to pay 40 million for what they had done. And this was the work that they said they had done, and they wanted us to pay 40 million for this.
Oh, so they wanted you to pay 40 million for what?
140.
It's
Chair.
140 million,
140
but they
million.
wanted the first payment of 40 million.
Oh, okay. So otherwise, in terms of what they were communicating to you, this page is starting at page 38 represent the master plan as far as they were concerned.
Yes, this
Yes.
page is from
38
page
to-
38 up until 81.
Yes.
Would represent the master
The
plan.
master plan.
And this will be this as a presentation, master plan.
Yeah.
This is what they wanted money.
The
for.
140 million for
40 million for
preparing.
this. And then other work that will happen,
Yeah.
they would be demanding, like the workshop.
Yes.
The workshop that they had for 2 days.
Yeah.
They wanted also to be paid 40 million
Yes.
for arranging that workshop. So
Yes.
it was going to be like that,
Yes.
milking the state
Yes.
for work that they did not do.
Yes.
And this is what they wanted to do. And that is
Yes.
why he was, if you read that letter that he wrote to the HOD, that was showing a person who was now angry and
Yes.
threatening.
Yes.
And the issue, when they called, that's why they went to the HOD. When they spoke to me, I said, you can go, take me to court.
Yes.
If you say I committed fraud, it was a breach of contract, etc.,
Yeah.
take me to court, because they presented a master plan thing that they said I signed,
Yes.
agreement, where they said I signed both as an HOD and both as an MEC. I'm not stupid. Really, I'm not that foolish.
Are you saying that at some stage they said you had signed to approve the master plan?
They said
And
that
they
I
said
think
you
it
signed
could
as
be.
MEC
It could
and
be.
HOD.
I don't know if Mr. Mkwena, it is here.
I
It is
didn't
in
pick it
the
up in
master
any
plan
statement.
agreement.
No.
Where they indicated, in fact, there's a place where they showed. They said I had signed the master plan agreement.
Yes.
And there's a space for the HOD.
Yes.
They were aware that the HOD must sign.
Yeah.
But then they attached what seems like my signature, as well as the MEC. And throughout that document where they say I attach my signature, there is nothing. There is no.
There's no signature.
No, there is this was their plan.
Yes.
And then they say that there's no letterhead of government, there's nothing. And all that they say, there's no witness. I mean, You can't sign any document. There are no witnesses. It's only them who would have had witnesses. I'm alone. I'm signing the document with them. And then I sign as an HOD, and they are sitting there. If they say this is what happened, let's assume that it happened. They are sitting there. I'm signing HOD, and then I'm signing MEC. I mean...
Yes, but what I'm trying to establish is this. Is there a document that you were once shown or that you once saw where on their version you had signed as HOD and as MEC? It may or may not be here. I didn't see anything. I just want to know whether there is such a document that might not be here maybe, but that you have seen at some stage.
Mr. Chair, he's referring, I think, not to the documents that are before you.
Yes.
He's referring, I think, to the affidavit of Mr. Ikbam Sharma, which is still not before you because of what we've explained in the morning.
Yes, but I just want to understand, but is the position that there is some document somewhere where, on your understanding, that is the position where they were saying you did sign? You might say I did not sign, but they say you signed as HOD and as MEC.
Yes.
Okay, so at some stage, maybe when you come back, maybe we will get to know more about that. Yes. But coming back to the master plan agreement, I just want to confirm, are you saying that all these terms and conditions that are in this draft agreement are terms that were never discussed with you? Or are you saying, well, because you have never gone through them, you wouldn't know whether it is things that may have been discussed in the meetings that you had with them, but which they had decided to put into an agreement without your approval?
What would be the page that the...
Page 83.
83, master plan agreement. You see, there is a whole agreement, and I'm interested to see whether they just decided what the terms and conditions of the agreement were going to be on their own, or whether there was some discussion, as far as you know, either with you or with somebody else in relation to the master plan, and they took that discussion and they used that discussion as a basis to come up with some terms and conditions.
Well, I don't fully understand the question, but all I would respond to is the discussion that we had, as I said, was only to an extent that there is an interest in developing this.
Yes.
If you are willing to help us in terms of raising and bringing investment, and we then deal with the program moving forward, we will then, because we said we wanted to have a master plan that would allow us to work this. So that might have informed them to go out and say this will be the master plan agreement that they would work on. But that was not going to start. You would not do any master plan, anything without, because it needs your technical people who would your surveyors, etc., who will also get into the land that you have identified. And then they would know exactly what we're talking about. So there was no way we could actually enter into any agreement without all these other things dealt with first. And we could not have gone to that extent outside the Executive Council. So any project of this magnitude needs to be approved by the Executive Council. So I would not have agreed to or signed anything to that amount of money without authorization from the Executive Council.
Okay. Maybe when you come back next time, if you might have just looked at the terms of the agreement, just to be able to say something along the lines that, yes, some of the things that they've put into this agreement seem to have a connection with prior discussions that I'd had with them, or there is no connection. They just came up with their own terms and conditions that they thought should go into the agreement. There is no connection with whatever we might have discussed. That's the angle that I would like. And then can you go to page 104? Now, that is DM8. That's the draft letter that you told us Mr. Sharma drafted for you without your asking him to do so, which was addressed to Mr. John Thomas. In the first paragraph, he says, or you were supposed to say, thank you for meeting with us to discuss our vision for the City for Tomorrow project. My question is, had you been involved in a meeting with Mr. Thomas where there was a discussion of the City for Tomorrow project?
Yes.
There had been such a meeting?
Yes, there had been such a meeting.
Okay. Now, you did read this letter?
Yes.
Yes. Now, its contents, does it reflect things that you knew had happened?
Yes, to the extent that they refer to the project itself,
Yes.
and but not to confirm some of the issues and the general agreements that they are referring to.
Yes.
But in terms of what we were saying, for instance, the question that we would want this city to include schools, parks, hospitals, etc.
Yes.
This is what we were talking about
Yes.
in the meeting, that is what we want.
Yes.
About it being a modern, cutting-edge city, of course,
Yes.
these were the discussions.
Yes.
But as to other things that we needed to deal, there was a need to make sure that at some stage after we were certain and had approval from the Executive Council,
Yes.
we would then deal with this matter
Yes.
of the master plan after the workshops
Yes.
and everything else.
Yes.
And that was also, the workshops were not only going to end with us, it was going to be a workshop in the provincial department first, and then with the municipality that was going to be affected or
Yes.
involved in this. So before all those things could happen, there was no way we could have spoken about an agreement in relation to the master plan with them.
Yes, yes. Okay, and then there is the other letter at page 105. Before we go to 105, at 104, so is your evidence that some of the things that the letter talks about at 104 are correct, but you were not ready at that stage to write any letter of this kind to them because it was too early. There were still things to be done. What had happened was just still discussions.
Yeah. It was too early.
Yes.
If you check, for instance, what we had discussed, then they indicated, P3 indicated, I had no clue in terms of what they were saying they can do.
Yes.
So then that's why we said, let's have a workshop, let's deal this, let's
Yes.
work with this matter.
Yes.
Then they said, they offered, they said, no, we can prepare the master plan for the project
Yes.
at our expenses.
Yes.
So we said, if you can do that,
Yes.
let's see what we can do. Then we then said to them, I then said, in that meeting, if you check before thank you, if the master plan is properly delivered, the way that I used was, if we find that what you have actually meets our requirements, and we are happy with that, we will then engage.
Yes. Yes.
We then said we will engage, not
Yes.
sign anything.
Yes.
We said we will then engage
Yes.
with you and discuss a possible engagement on the implementation of the project.
So that last sentence might not be so incorrect. Subject to some qualification, it does reflect what you had said.
Yes, it
Yes.
does.
Okay, but the
But
bottom
strangely
line,
enough, after all this, you will then have them bringing in what they said is the master plan agreement.
yes, yes.
Before
Before the
any
engagement.
any of these engagements, etc.,
Yes.
that we had agreed.
Yes.
And remember also they had said they will do that at the expenses. So there was no need for us. We then said, because I pointed out, here is a company that says we are capable of doing this. We can do this. But the question was, as they were saying, said, we have not identified land. So where would you do this?
Yes.
You see? So the understanding was that at the time when we have identified the land, when the Executive Council had made approval, National is involved in the whole thing, we would then look into you dealing with this matter.
Yes.
But they were just in a hurry to get money.
Yeah. Yes. And then you have page 105. That's the letter that was prepared again by Mr. Sharma for you to sign. You did have a look at, did read the contents of the letter, didn't you? I just want to do the same exercise. To what extent, in brief, some of the things it says emanated from discussions that you had, or is it just a letter that they may have just decided to prepare without really anything connected with any previous discussion?
I think here, I don't know what they were trying to do, but as I say, that part of the letter there, and if you look at this one, they were now becoming, specific, speaking about approximately the government center envisioned to be approximately 160,000 square meters in size. What would have informed that? You have not engaged any government.
You knew nothing about that.
No needs, etc. No.
That
We would not have
160.
arrived at this. This is too specific. For you to arrive at this, you would have dealt with the needs of the provincial government and would know what we're looking at. And you would not just come in and put this. And it would not also have been addressed by a workshop. It would have been a detailed engagement to find out exactly what is it that government needs and all that. And that will only come out after the Executive Council had approved and said we need to move.
Yes.
I mean, if you have this as your government center, it is in Lejweliputo, in Machabe, and government is in Bloemfontein. I mean, were they here in the mind thinking of moving the provincial government from Bloemfontein to Welkom? I mean, this was, it's ridiculous just to think about this. So
But
I'm just saying, these were in here, Chairperson, throughout. The attempt is just to make sure that there is something signed, there's some agreement of some kind, and then go back and claim money.
Would it be correct to say, at least in respect of some of the contents of the letter at page 105 to 106, would it be correct to say some of the information, some of the contents of the letter are things that you really knew nothing about?
If you check paragraph 2,
Yes.
that the master plan will involve the creation of overall plans for the project infrastructure, the public transportation facilities, sustainability and integration of services, housing, medical, high-tech private development, entertainment, public safety parks, and in light of local conditions and within a broader regional context, the design of the master plan will also incorporate a site for a new government center. Now, if you check this, what actually we were here conveying, not in the exact term or way, it was this thing, when you speak of the master plan, you involve much bigger scope that would include several of these issues and even more. But it will not be something that would be taken. You meeting with these people in February, and late in February, they come in, and speak about a master plan agreement and all those things. I mean,
Yeah.
that was something.
Yes.
So there are some of these things that we would have spoken in our meeting. But if you check, when they would go down, they would then write what they would want me to sign.
Yes.
And this chairperson, it comes out, it's marks of, when people think that probably all of us, there are people who think that we are stupid, that you will just attach your signature and do this and then start working. And this would relate, in fact, to what happened with the dairy saga and everything, and this. So if you check, this has been the modus operandi, that members of the Executive Council or, the HODs will be made to sign documents, and these documents will then be used to siphon money from the coffers of the state under the disguise that there is a project that needs to be taken on board. And this is not far from what the modus operandi had become of what these groupings had been associated or familiar with. So all these things, and even the amount of money that is mentioned there, honestly, Chairperson, how would we ever come to the agreement of or spoken about 140 million? What would have informed that amount of money?
At that time.
At that time, 140 million, that is in 2011. You're speaking about 140 million. That is not about any construction. It's about schematic design, master plan, everything. You pay them 140 million. Basically, what has become accustomed to what has been happening in the province.
So, at least in respect of some of the things, were they trying to feed you something that you knew nothing about, like that amount? Were they trying to let you say something that you really knew nothing about, like that amount? It's not something that you had discussed. It's not something that was related to any reality as far as you know.
You see, Chairperson, the way they will couch the letters and prepare these letters for you to sign, it is designed to hide a lot and put you in a fix in terms of you attaching a signature. People have become accustomed to members of the Executive Council or other people who would only, you say you attach your signature without reading. So they could have come accustomed to working with such individuals. And they would, that's why a number of letters, they will prepare a number of letters and do this and deal with this. If they were dealing with me, in my official capacity, why would they, Chairperson, every time send documentation to my Gmail, not government, my private mail, not government, email, and would all other things when they communicate with others, they do this. It's actually, you see, this is also something that one has come to realize that. Probably we are thought to be all stupid. We just like signing, and and money goes out, and that would come, as we would say. Why I'm saying this? Because it happened in the province where people signed, money went out. People signed, money went out when they had no business to sign. So in this case, it was going to be the same thing. And I signed this, and for instance, if what they say was signed, they would have demanded money, and that should have been paid. For instance, if I had signed this documentation as they claim that I might have signed, I would have forced the HOD to pay, as it has become a habit in other instances. And this, when it did not happen, the best way now to go was to go to the HOD. And when the HOD did not play, the best was to go to the DG, and the DG then referred them back to the department, that the department will deal with this matter. And when all this failed, it was now time to go to Saxon World. And this is what everything points out to that direction.
Yes.
So sign this, you out. Sign this, this happens. And
Yes.
this actually happened with a colleague of mine
Yes.
who would have signed documents without actually knowing what he was signing and ended up in hot water. And people with money ended up with a big check without doing anything in the province. So this was part of that scheme. And when it did not happen, I was fired.
Mr. Mkwena, you said you had finished. That
Yes,
remains
yes,
the position. It remains for me once again to thank you, Mr. Tugwana, for coming forward to assist the Commission. As I said, it's very important, and I wish more people who know things that happened which should not have happened will appreciate the importance of helping the Commission and helping the nation to know exactly what happened, so that we can find a way of making sure that measures are put in place to make sure it doesn't happen again, and to also make sure that we build our country to be a better country. And to do that, we need people who know things that happened that shouldn't have happened, to have the courage to come forward and to appreciate how important it is for them, if they love this country, to come forward and help us to establish what happened and see what measures should be taken. I appreciate the fact that you will come back. You are committed to assisting the Commission further and to make sure that you give the Commission all the information that you know of in order to give us a full picture of what you know has happened in various parts of the Free State or the country. I hope that others will be encouraged to come forward and also assist. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I ask something, Chairperson?
Yes, yes.
For this to happen, sitting here and speaking English,
Yes.
You have many other colleagues, many other people
Yes.
who are willing to come, but I was
Yes.
talking with my legal team and
Yes.
the legal team of the Commission,
Yes.
that you've got people who are saying, isilungu esithethwa apha, and people who would not want
We're
to
saying
come.
isilungu.
You know, that have
Yeah.
you also in your back of your mind considered, at least when there are witnesses who would want to have an interpreter, that could be afforded. With
Yes.
that, people would be willing, many people would be willing to come forward.
Yes.
I
yes.
think what also has become a stumbling block is people are afraid
Yes.
that they might be exposed in terms of
Yes.
expressing themselves in English.
Yes.
And that I think it would assist very much if there was such a request and people are
Yes.
granted and an interpreter is
Yes.
provided.
Well, I'm grateful you mentioned that, Mr. Tugwana. I've never thought that there could be a situation where people would think that if they came here, they would be forced to speak in English. Certainly, everyone who wants to give evidence here in their own language can come here, and the Commission will provide an interpreter. Certainly when we talk about the official languages of the country, but even when it's a language that is not official, an official language, we will try and get somebody who can interpret from that language into English and from English to that. So certainly convey the information to them that there's nobody who is going to be asked to speak in a language other than the language with which he is comfortable or she is comfortable. So interpreters will be available. We've made provision for them. There's a budget for interpreters. It's just that almost everybody who has come here seems to have been comfortable to just speak in English. Whether somebody speaks in Afrikaans, isiSotho, isiTswana, isiZulu, isiXhosa, isiPedi, isiVenda, they can come and we will provide interpreters.
Thank you.
Yes, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
You are excused, and we will see you again when you come back.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. That concludes the proceedings for today, Chair.
Yes, and next week, from Monday, we deal with law enforcement. Yes, it is law enforcement. Next week, we will hear evidence from witnesses that deal with issues relating to law enforcement agencies. Thank you very much. It is 5 o'clock, and we adjourn, and we will start at 10 o'clock on Monday. We adjourn.
All right.